one thing that was really striking for us was to really try and find the thread, the commonality that brings all of the nations together through the themes of sustainability, mobility and opportunity. The visitor experience, the physical, architectural, how do we begin to tell a bigger story about sustainability, mobility and opportunity, and how do we make it relevant in a COVID era? I feel that it's remarkable that we've had over 2 million views of our online content, and this is not 4 seconds, this is 10 minutes of watching our online content just for the Global Goals Week. So my name is Nadia Verjee, and I'm Chief of Staff at Expo 2020, responsible for the Programme for People and Planet, which is the thought leadership piece of the Expo. The reason why we decided to design a programme for people and planet from the very beginning was because we know that countries typically come to expos to talk about nation branding, attracting foreign direct investment, attracting inward tourism, and they normally stand alongside one another, sort of really screaming through their beautiful architecture and the kind of content that they put inside their pavilions about their individuality. But one thing that was really striking for us was to really try and find the thread, the commonality that brings all of the nations together through the themes of sustainability, mobility and opportunity. So once COVID happened, we took a step back and really thought about what do we need to do to make this entire experience, the content experience, the visitor experience, the physical, architectural, how do we begin to tell a bigger story about sustainability, mobility and opportunity, and how do we make it relevant in a COVID era? So we spent the summer of 2020 working with the countries, surveying them, getting a sense of what it was that they wanted to discuss, and then drawing common threads. And those common threads then manifested in a collective program, the Programme for People and Planet, which was really the country's program, not ours. And sort of experiences like visitor journeys, where you would go and visit all the countries that are low-lying islands that are impacted by climate change, or go and visit all the countries that are interested in space technology or interested in space in some way. So really trying to create sort of that duality and that conversation as opposed to that individuality. And we've had millions of people walk through the gates, experience it, but we've also had millions of people watch our content online.
From 2013 to now, you've grown probably tremendously, so I'm sort of interested in unpacking.
I have ended up doing the complete opposite of what I started out to do. So when I started out, I studied comparative literature as my undergraduate degree.
Okay.
So French and Spanish, comparative literature. I spent time living in France, spent time living in Spain. That wasn't really a vocational degree. People would say, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I would say, I'm not sure. But I always did what I enjoyed, and I always did what I was good at. So I'd found kind of an area that I really thrived in, and that was always something that drove me. I think beginning to understand how to speak to people in their own language and beginning to understand how to read people and their history is fundamental. Otherwise, how can you begin to work in a global context like we work in? So of course that was a fundamental building block. But then I've always had an interest in international relations and politics, and didn't really know where that would land, but then I did a master's in international relations, and I focused in on European policy and European politics. So that was my landing page. That took me then to the US, where I worked for a year in Washington DC for the European Union as an intern, and then went back to Brussels, which is where every aspiring European politico wants to be, and I was there for a very long time. But what I did along that journey was a lot of campaign work, a lot of lobbying, sort of grassroots level lobbying, really understanding what it takes to win a bid, what it really takes to win an opinion, what it takes to win a campaign at the very basic level, but then building up to a more of a global level. And then I served, when I came here, as the Europe desk officer in the International Affairs Office of the Prime Minister, which is where I met Her Excellency. She has been my boss for 13 years. But everything that I put in place before really led me to that point where I could combine the European politics with the languages, with really sort of understanding how to navigate complex political complexities. And then she made me head of strategy for the Expo bid. And so the trajectory wasn't really a clear one. It wasn't really a linear one. There were just lots of very different building blocks that I put in place, and I took advantage of every opportunity I had, was very open about every single experience that was offered to me, and it was hard work, with a little bit of creativity, and just having a mentor like Her Excellency to be able to chaperone me on the journey with her. And that's been, I mean, it's been astonishing in every way. I said I never wanted to have anything more to do with an expo for the rest of my life.
I can imagine.
So I moved back to her International Affairs office in the Foreign Ministry.
Okay.
And then in 2016 or so, Her Excellency brought myself and two other colleagues back to Expo to build the International Participants Department. So we had lobbied to secure their vote during the bid.
Okay.
So now it was time to lobby them again to come to the Expo. So then I became Senior Vice President for International Participants with a view to bringing and building the International Participants Department and securing all the countries, which we did. We secured the largest number of countries ever.
By over like 50, I think, right?
I think we did pretty well. And then I became her Chief of Staff, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
You have all these new ingredients to make these new things. Can you somehow bring that to life for me? What are your key new divisions of thought leadership that you're working on?
We asked ourselves about, I don't know, a year and a half ago, what would it take to start a movement? What would it take to get people around the world to understand what Dubai is, who the UAE is, what the people of the UAE are, 200 nationalities, but driven by a vision and a leadership that has made all of this happen. And taking all of those good ingredients and layering into it 200 nationalities, 192 nations, all moving in the same direction towards a greater good for humanity so that we can live and work and play in a safer, cleaner, healthier world. I feel that it's remarkable that we've had over 2 million views of our online content, and this is not 4 seconds, this is 10 minutes of watching our online content just for the Global Goals Week. The Global Goals Week left the United Nations for the first time in its history and came to the Expo 2020 for an entire week to talk to the public about what the Sustainable Development Goals are.
What are your key 3 programs or initiatives that you want to take forward?
So from a legacy perspective, we're very keen on driving, we're outcome driven, always. So it's really taking what's come out of the conversations here, what's come out of the exchanges here, the kind of new forms of partnerships that have been built, looking at what's worked, looking at what hasn't worked, and putting that out in the universe as information, but also almost as a challenge to the world to pass the baton and to say this is what we did, and this is the way we did it, and maybe you can join the movement. I'm
just curious, what are the ideas, the experiences that seem where the experiment works? Like, where's your engagement starting to scale?
Yeah, so we've had maybe 10,000 or 12,000 people actively participate in our program.
Okay.
As speakers, as moderators, and there are already people in the world who do incredible things. But the message that we're hearing from them is that this was different. But last week alone, I had the fortune of being in a room with Prince William, with William Hague, with A.R. Rahman, being on the phone to Coldplay, having a conversation with Indra Nooyi yesterday, right, the former CEO of Pepsi, on exactly the same subjects, but all lining, and our government leaders, our ministers, but lining everyone up. So we have Coldplay speaking about our program for People and Planet. We have Indra Nooyi speaking about our program for People and Planet. We have the Earthshot Prize, which is His Royal Highness Prince William's annual prize. But all of those things lined up, sort of collaborating and forming new conversations about what can be done when you work together. And so that's how you begin to kind of draw everybody's experience and attention around the same vision or around the same outcome.
You're talking about collaboration, but I feel like you've done this brilliant worldwide catalyst of Expo by giving all of these different conduits to empathy. And then that gives rise to new kinds of collaboration.
You're exactly right. And I would maybe build into that by saying what we've done is a lot of storytelling. what we've done is build that empathy by creating a level playing field for every single nation to feel equal. They have their one nation, one pavilion, but we worked with the nations to elevate their experiences to ensure that message is incredibly compelling, that they communicate what it is that they want to communicate, so that they have a rightful seat at the table to ensure that those conversations are fair, equitable, and actually have the strength to continue through the 6 months and beyond.
One of the things that I've seen as I've been through the expo is there is a real celebration of unity of purpose and not individuality. I don't feel like one pavilion is trying to scream or outdo the other pavilion as much as each one feels like a color in a canvas that is the masterpiece of Expo.
That was purposeful. So the way that we designed the site, in the way that we integrated all of the countries in the placement on the site, in the way that we worked with every single nation to ensure that their story was told appropriately, in the way that they wanted it to be told. There was just so much thought that went into every step that the ultimate outcome has been this level playing field where everybody has their own space, their own identity, that it's not a clash, that it really focuses on what we started with, commonality, and making sure that there are those connections and linkages. So it feels holistic.
What is the action that you'd like people to take after they encounter you and your work here?
So when they come through, sort of a good litmus test of them having really understood what it is that we're trying to achieve here is when they do physically our SDG challenge, or they've written their to-do list, or they've demonstrated that they've internalized really the big picture of what the expo is about, that we should know each other better, that we should be more considerate of one another, that we should be more aware of each other's culture and identity, that just that basic step really then opens up all of these other doors for you that potentially leads to massive positive ripple effects for businesses, for individuals, just opens your eyes to what's possible.
Purpose. What's next for you?
No idea. Holiday. A long one.